What's up, guys? We got this week's best UFC bets for UFC Kansas City Prates versus Garry, and I'm excited for this week's card. I'm also excited for my lock of the week, which I believe you guys aren't going to expect at all. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with my lock of the week being none other than Evan Elder to beat Gage Young. I think Evan Elder is a talented and skillful prospect on the rise. Though having those two losses, one to Sadikov and the other to Preston Parsons, again, those weren't bad losses. The Preston Parsons, he came in on short notice, up a weight class, and ended up getting dominated. Then you have the loss to Sadikov in lightweight, which I believe is his natural weight class and where he's going to do the most damage in is phenomenal. If you didn't watch that fight against Sadikov, he absolutely pieced and picked him apart and was landing some nice, brutal overhands and ended up actually dropping Sadikov in the first round before ultimately losing due to technical knockout, due to the fact that he got a slit right above his eye and the doctors saying it was too close for him to continue. But let's not forget the success in the striking department that he had over Nazim Sadikov, who is on an absolute tear in the UFC, taking down the likes of Ismail Bofim as of recently. So you know he is a talented fighter, and Evan Elder was up 2-0 against him before getting that brutal slit above his eye. And then you have the fight against Valdez, Jarno Valdez, where Evan Elder knocked him down once, twice, and three times. In every single round, at the start of the round, he was either tagging him or dropping him at the start of the round. So Evan Elder is a very powerful striker with some deadly knockout power, and not to mention some nasty, accurate shots. So I favor the side of Evan Elder, especially up against Gage Young, who lost to Quillen Salykilled, who was tagging him with that jab, and I believe that Evan Elder can tag him with that power jab that he has as well. I think that Evan Elder is going to crack Gage Young. I really do. I think that he's a lot more explosive. I think that his striking is quicker and more accurate. So I favor the side of Evan Elder, and especially if Gage Young wants to slug it out in the pocket, I think Evan Elder is going to catch him, and I think he's going to crack him. And I think if Evan Elder does get caught, you have seen some recoverability from the side of Evan Elder. In that Nazim Sadikov fight, he got caught with a short hook, but ended up recovering and ended up still piecing and picking apart Sadikov. So I feel like at this lightweight division, this is where Evan Elder is going to shine, and up against somebody who I believe is less skillful than the likes of Nazim Sadikov, I think Evan Elder is going to be able to handle him, and I think he's going to be able to put on a impressive finish over a young and talented Gage Young, but it's just not going to be enough for the likes of Evan Elder. Give me Evan Elder to knock out Gage Young. Sitting at a negative 193 for the money line, I like straight down the middle money line for Evan Elder. But I also like the side of knockout. I am going to preach the side of knockout to you. Sitting at a plus 525, I think it's absolutely crazy not to even think that Evan Elder could tag Gage Young in the pocket due to the fact that they both like to stand in the pocket and slug it out. I think that there's definitely an argument that either one of them could get the knockout. Sitting at plus 525 for both of them, I think Evan Elder, with his powerhouse and with his deadly accurate shots, could land that knockout shot and is going to land that knockout shot over a young and talented Gage Young. Give me Evan Elder by knockout, sitting at a plus 525. And let's go ahead and run it to my most confident picks of this week. Starting off with Ming Yang Zhang over a old veteran in Anthony Smith. A old and gritty veteran in Anthony Smith. Ming Yang Zhang is a talented, up-and-coming prospect with a lot of talent and a lot of skill, and I believe he's going to be able to run over Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is on the later end of his career. He has been looking a lot slower and a lot more sluggish in the striking department, and I feel like Ming Yang Zhang can take full can fully exploit that side of things, really tagging him, really getting the better of him, really using that speed and explosive advantage to the best of his ability, and really just piecing and picking apart Anthony Smith before ultimately catching him and knocking him out. I think Ming Yang Zhang is going to knock out Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, like I said, looking a lot slower, looking a lot sluggish, not to mention he is already checked out of the fight game. He is already saying that this is his final fight and knowing that. And that's a huge, huge mental effect on you going into the last fight. You already are checked out of the fight game going into the fight against a deadly fighter in Ming Yang Zhang, and you're kind of halfway in, halfway out. That is something that is not recommended and something that is, quite frankly, super dangerous. So I favor the side of Ming Yang Zhang to close that distance, to even strike on the outside and get the better of Anthony Smith. No matter where this fight is, I think Ming Yang Zhang is going to have the advantage and is going to piece and pick apart and outdog a old veteran in Anthony Smith before ultimately landing the knockout shot. Give me Ming Yang Zhang via knockout. Obviously, Ming Yang Zhang, hard to get any money, sitting at negative 425 straight down the middle money line, but you could throw down on the knockout prop sitting at a negative 235. I really feel as though he is going to have the speed and explosive advantage, and I feel like he's going to use that to the best of his ability, and he's going to crack Anthony Smith on the feet, especially seeing as Anthony Smith is starting to get slower and more sluggish, leaving him more open to these straight shots that Ming Yang Zhang brings. So give me Ming Yang Zhang to land the knockout shot over the old gritty veteran in Anthony Smith. And let's go ahead and run it to the next confident pick in Ikram Aliskerov over Andre Muniz. I like Ikram Aliskerov. He is a well-rounded individual that has very good grappling and very good striking, and I think he's going to be able to use that to the best of his ability against Andre Muniz, who lacks in the striking department. He ultimately is mainly a grappler that tries to use his grappling to get the better of his opponents, but doesn't bring enough of a striking threat to really worry about anything other than the grappling that Andre Muniz brings. And I feel like with the background of Ikram Aliskerov in the Sambo background that he has, is what I'm trying to say, he's going to be able to snub the takedowns, be able to keep this to the feet, where ultimately I believe he has the complete advantage over Andre Muniz, and he's going to piece and pick him apart. I mean, Ikram Aliskerov has some nasty knockout power. He has laid down some nasty knockouts over Warley Alves and over a couple of other guys in Phil Hawes as well. So I feel like Ikram Aliskerov, being the well-rounded fighter that he is going to use the Sambo background to keep this on the feet, to keep this where he has the ultimate advantage, outstrike, pick apart, and knock out a Andre Muniz who lacks in the striking department and ultimately relies too much on his grappling to get the better of his opponents. Give me Ikram Aliskerov for the knockout. Sitting at a negative 460, obviously, again, very hard to get value out of the money line, but that's why we got the KO prop. Sitting at a negative 200, I think he is 100% live to knock out Andre Muniz, who lacks in the stand-up game and ultimately relies too much on the grappling side of things. Give me Ikram Aliskerov to knock out Andre Muniz. And let's go ahead and run it to the next confident pick in Damon Blackshear to beat Alatong Hae Lee. I think that Damon Blackshear is better wherever this fight goes. Whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, I think that Blackshear is better. He has the quicker hands. He has the more explosive shots. Not to mention he has the craftier combinations. And not to mention he has a huge reach advantage. So striking wise, he has a lot of variables that favor his side. Grappling wise, he has some of the nastiest submissions, some of the quickest transitions, and some of the best position advances. So I favor the side of Blackshear wherever this fight goes. He is better than Alatong Hae Lee in every single aspect of the fight game. So I think that Blackshear is live to either submit a Alatong Hae Lee or go to decision or even knock him out, as a matter of fact. But I ultimately think the most likely outcome is Damon Blackshear getting him down to the ground and finding that submission finish. I really believe so. Damon Blackshear is a skillful grappler with some honestly very, very impressive submission skills that I think he's going to use to the best of his ability here against a Alatong Lee, who has been submitted by the likes of Hayoni Barcelos, which I believe that Blackshear has better submission game than him, and I feel like he can get him down to the ground, find those takedowns, garner that control time, advance positions, and land that tricky submission. Give me Damon Blackshear via submission, sitting at a plus 125. I like the side of Damon Blackshear by submission, especially seeing as his money line straight down the middle, sitting at a negative 460. Just like the likes of Ikram Alisgrov and Ming Yang Zhang, very hard to get value out of their line straight down the middle money line. But there's always those props that I believe are live, and I do believe he is live to land that submission finish over Alatong Lee, sitting at a plus 125. Especially with his tricky submissions and his ability to advance positions. Give me Damon Blackshear to submit Alatong Lee. And let's go ahead and run it to my next confident pick in Giga Chikadze over David Onama. And I love this pick. I am in love with the side of Giga Chikadze being plus money. Sitting at a plus 145, Giga Chikadze is somebody you need to bet on. He is a confident pick. David Onama, who has he beat? I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds to think of who he has beat that is anywhere near the likes of Giga Chikadze. He has beat Roberto Romero, who actually knocked him down, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, took that fight on short notice and put on a hell of a fight against David Onama. Now you're giving David Onama a huge jump up in competition to Giga Chikadze, who recently fought Arnold Allen, who is amongst the best of the best? No way is David Onama beating Giga Chikadze. Giga Chikadze, I get it, he's old, but he's still not out of his prime. He is not looking slower. He is not looking sluggish. He is looking fantastic on the feet, and I believe he's going to absolutely put the paws on David Onama. I really do believe so. David Onama has some openings, as seen in the Roberto Romero fight, and I believe that Giga Chikadze could definitely find those shots on the inside, even find some shots on the outside, landing those overhands and catching a David Onama. I really do believe so. Giga Chikadze has been up against way better competition, has way better striking, and can really set up his shots and use his combinations to really get the better of David Onama on the feet. So give me Giga Chikadze sitting at a whopping plus 145 to beat David Onama, who hasn't beaten anybody at the likes or at the skill level of Giga Chikadze. So it is very, very surprising to see Giga Chikadze at plus money. But if you guys are seeing it, open up your wallet books and put money on Giga Chikadze, because he is a dog that is very, very good and that I am very, very confident in. So give me Giga Chikadze to beat the prospect in David Onama, sitting at a plus 145. And let's go ahead and run it to my underdog picks of this week, which I am excited for as well. In the first pick being Abus Magomedov to beat Michel Pereira. Listen, I know Michel Pereira is dangerous, but he is only dangerous for that first round. After that first round, his skills diminish a lot. His cardio diminishes a lot. His power diminishes a lot. He is just not the same fighter after the first round. And I believe that Abus Magomedov can implement a similar game plan to what Fluffy did, which is out-grapple him, take away that cardio early, take away that power early, and just wear and tear on him throughout the entire 3 rounds. And I believe he's going to be able to do that. I really do. I think Michel Pereira's grappling skills are being way overhyped, in the sense that I believe Abus Magomedov is going to be able to get him down to the ground, be able to garner control time, maybe even advance positions, and possibly land a tricky submission as Michel Pereira gets a lot more tired and a lot more drained. You could see a late round submission for the side of Abus Magomedov. I really do believe so. I think as this fight goes on, it's favoring Abus Magomedov, especially seeing as he has a grappling advantage. I think striking wise, he can stand up with the likes of Michel Pieta. He has those sniper straight shots and some nasty knockout power. So I think anywhere this fight goes, Abus Magomedov is good not only on the feet, but also in the grappling department, getting the better of Michel Pieta, who is a one-round fighter. Yes, he's going to be dangerous, but if Abus Magomedov can either get him down to the ground early, wear and tear on him, or survive that early onslaught, I think Abus Magomedov is live to easily be a Michel Pieta who just tends to slow down and starts to look a lot more sluggish after the first round. So give me Abus Magomedov sitting at a plus 118. I like the side of the underdog money for Abus Magomedov. And then we have the side of John Castaneda as my next underdog pick. I think he can beat Chris Gutierrez. I really do. I think he can pressure him, and I think he can do a similar style to what Abus Magomedov has to do, which is pressure Gutierrez with that grappling. I think that John Castaneda is going to use the grappling to take down Gutierrez early, wear on him, diminish that power and that gas tank of Gutierrez, and really just garner control time at advanced positions, and he could possibly land a tricky submission. Let's not forget, he submitted Miles Johns, and he looked good in doing so, and Miles Johns has some very good submission skills, so I believe that John Castaneda has a clear-cut grappling advantage, my apologies, and he's going to use that to the best of his abilities. I think Chris Gutierrez has a decent grappling skill set in the sense that he can kind of snub takedowns, but ultimately he does get taken down, and when he does get taken down, he tends to not be able to get back up to his feet very quickly. So I favor the side of Castaneda to get him down to the ground, to garner some control time, and to honestly even find some success in the striking department in that inside close boxing area. I think he's got the quicker hands. I think he's got the nastier hooks on the inside. So I favor Castaneda on the inside boxing range and in the grappling department. So give me John Castaneda to outwork, outdog, and really put on a pace and pressure that Chris Gutierrez is not going to be able to handle. And he's going to be able to outwork and outdog and outstrike and outgrapple a tough, gritty opponent in Chris Gutierrez. Give me John Castaneda sitting at a plus 135. I like the underdog money. I think a lot of you guys are sleeping on the pressure and pace that John Castaneda brings, and I think you guys are going to pay for it. So give me John Castaneda sitting at a plus 134. And let's go ahead and run it to my Degen props of this week. In the first Degen prop being John Castaneda via submission sitting at a... Where is it? What is it? What is it? John Castaneda sitting at a... Via submission. Where is it? Am I blind? I see knockout. Oh, via submission sitting at a plus 700. Honestly, the odds are super wide, even though Castaneda has a clear-cut grappling advantage, even though he submitted the likes of Miles Johns and a couple of others that are very good submission artists. I gotta favor the side of Castaneda. I think that, yes, he is live for that submission. I'm ultimately going to call via decision, but I think that that submission is live to hit sitting at a plus 700. I think it's wild sitting at a plus 700, seeing as Castaneda has a clear-cut grappling advantage. But let's go ahead and run it to the next Degen prop in Amarin via submission sitting at a negative 175. I like Amarin via submission. Obviously, you can't really do anything with her money line sitting at a negative 850. So go ahead and throw it down on her to win via submission, sitting at a negative 175. Obviously, her opponent, Polyana Viana, has a huge hole in her game, and that's the grappling department. And I feel like Amarin is going to be able to land those takedowns, be able to advance positions, and be able to land that tricky submission sitting at a negative 175. I like Amarin via submission. And let's go ahead and run it to the next Degen prop in Evan Elder to win via knockout. I am going to, again, preach the side of Evan Elder via knockout sitting at a plus 525. I think Evan Elder can crack. I think he's a powerhouse with some slick striking, with some nasty knockout power and some deadly accurate shots. So I feel like he's going to really piece and pick apart Gage Young, especially when they try to slug it out on that inside boxing range. I feel like Evan Elder is quicker. I feel like he's more explosive. And I feel like even if he gets hit by some big shots, he has some good recoverability as seen in that Sadikov fight. So give me Evan Elder to knock out Gage Young sitting at a plus 525. I really feel as though he's going to absolutely starch Gage Young. He has been in there with some better competition, and he has honestly proved himself against some better competition. Although losing, he did prove himself and did end up enduring the cut that ended up stopping the fight, but did look phenomenal in striking department, and I think he's going to be able to pick apart and knock out Gage Young, seeing as they both like to slug it out in the pocket, and I think Evan Elder will find that shot and will catch Gage Young. And let's go ahead and run it to my parlays. As these parlays go on, they get a lot more risky and a lot more degen, so do keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and run it to my parlays of this week. Starting off with the first parlay in Blackshear and Alice Grove moneyline sitting at a negative 207. I like this. I think that this is a safe parlay. I think Blackshear has the advantage wherever this fight goes, whether it's striking, whether it's grappling. I think he's a lot better than Alatong Haley and is going to deliver against Alatong Haley. And then we have Alice Grove moneyline, who is a lot better than Andre Muniz, who is very one-dimensional and relies mainly on his grappling to get the better of his opponents. But I don't believe that's going to work here against Alice Grove, who has a very good grappling base in that Sambo background. I believe he's going to be able to use that to snub the takedowns, keep this on the feet where he ultimately has that advantage, and get the better of a Andre Muniz. And let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Blackshear and Edwards moneyline sitting at a negative 157. I think this is another safe parlay. Blackshear, again, has the advantage wherever this fight goes over Alatong Haley. And then we have Edwards moneyline, who I believe is a lot better than Chelsea Chandler, who is terrible, who is very mediocre. Jocelyn Edwards has been in there with way better competition, has shown up against better competition, and I believe she's going to be able to beat Chandler, really just pressuring her, really putting on a pace that she's not going to be able to keep up with her, and really just wearing and tearing on her. So give me Edwards to win that. And then let's run it to the next parlay in Elder and Zhang moneyline sitting at a negative 114. That is the safe parlay as well, and I believe that is one of the better parlays. I like Elder. Like I said, he's the lock of the week. Zhang, one of my most confident picks of this week. I like both of them sitting at a negative 114. You're getting great value, and I see them both winning, and I see them both honestly winning in devastating fashion. So definitely keep that parlay in mind. But let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Elder, Alice Grove, and Zhang moneyline sitting at a plus 128. Maybe you want to add in Alice Grove to get that plus money for the big three. I think that all three of these guys are going to hit. I really do. It's the big three for a reason. I think they're all three going to hit. And let's go ahead and run to the next parlay in Castaneda and Edwards moneyline sitting at a plus 215. Great plus money value right there. I think Castaneda, with his pressure and pace and his grappling advantage, is going to be able to use that to the best of his ability to get the better of Gutierrez, really closing that distance, really keeping it in that inside boxing range where I believe he has that advantage, and ultimately winning over a Chris Gutierrez. Then we have Edwards moneyline, which I talked about before. I think she's going to outwork and outdog a Chandler. I really do. And then let's go ahead and run it to the submission parlay of the week in Amarin and Blackshear via submission, sitting at a plus 254. I think both of them are alive to get the submission finishes on both of their opponents because they both have tricky submissions. They both are very, very good at taking down their opponents, maintaining control, advancing positions, and finding those tricky submissions. So give me Amarin and Blackshear to submit both of their opponents, sitting at a plus 254. Great value right there. And let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Giga, Chikadze, and Abus moneyline. I love both of them. Sitting at a plus 434, you're getting absolutely phenomenal odds right here. Both of these guys should not be underdogs. They're both getting slept on, and oh my god, and I think that they're both going to deliver with some nasty, nasty victories over their opponents. So give me Giga and Abu's money line sitting at a plus 434. And let's run it to the next parlay. In Giga, Chikadze, Blackshear, Alice Grove, and Abu's money line sitting at a plus 692. I like these four. This is the fantastic four, and I believe that they're going to deliver for sure. So give me all these four to bring me even more money. Now let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Elder, Giga, and Abu's money line sitting at a plus 711. That is dog money. You have two dogs in Giga and Abu's who I believe are being slept on, like I said, and who I believe are going to beat their opponents and pick and piece them apart. And then you have Elder, my lock of the week, who I believe is going to absolutely starch Gage Young and knock him clean out. Sitting at that plus 711, like I said, that's dog money, and I think it's completely live to hit. And let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Elder, Zhang, by knockout. I love both of these two. I think both of them are going to absolutely starch their opponents. Anthony Smith, on the later end of his career, has been looking a lot slower and a lot more sluggish. So I believe Zhang is going to land a straight shot and knock him clean out. And then Elder, on the other hand, his opponent likes to slug it out in the pocket. And I believe that Elder is a lot quicker, a lot more explosive, has been up against better competition, has delivered some nasty knockdowns over better competition, and is going to deliver here with a nasty knockout over Gage Young. Sitting at a plus 791. That is the knockout parlay of the week. And make sure you guys tune into that one because that knockout is coming. But let's go ahead and run it to the next parlay in Giga, Blackshear, Alice Grove, Abu's, and Elder money line sitting at a plus 1,102. That is the Degen prop of this week. Very Degen, very risky, so do keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and run it to something even more risky, even more Degen in the Max Degen parlay in Elder, Zhang, and Alice Grove by knockout. All three of them to end their opponents, starch their opponents, finish their opponents, sitting at a whopping plus 1,236. That is the Max Degen parlay of this week, in which I think is going to hit. I really do. Ikram Alice Grove is going up against Andre Muniz, who lacks in the striking department and tends to get knocked out. And Ikram is a very, very talented striker with some nasty knockout power, and I believe he's going to dust Andre Muniz. Then we have Zhang, who again, like I said before, is going up against the slower and more sluggish Anthony Smith, who is already kind of halfway checked out. So I favor him to be at a speed and explosive advantage, find those shots straight down the middle, and land and starch a old gritty veteran in Anthony Smith. Then we have Evan Elder, who I believe is going to starch Gage Young with that nasty powerhouse striking that he brings. He's going to slug it out in the pocket. He's going to land some big shots. He's going to knock out Gage Young, just like he's knocked down Nazim Sadikov and Valdez. So I favor the side of Elder to get the knockout as well. Obviously, that is the Max Degen parlay of this week. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.